for joining us today, and it's really great to see all of you as we welcome June here. It's hard to believe we're already into June, but it's great to see all of you, and thanks for joining us. We wanted to start off by just welcoming one of our special guests, Holly Kyle, and Holly is the executive director of the Snyder Union-Snyder Agency on Aging, and she has been doing great work there for a very long time, actually, but we won't say how long. But she's a wonderful staple for the Valley here, has done great work with seniors, and the agency, of course, serves anyone who's 60 and older to help live independent lives. And we're really grateful for all of her advocacy and Holly's great work in making sure that she's addressing the local needs of a very important part of our population. So Holly is actually invited today because Thomas received a letter from another individual that alerted the government affairs team at the chamber to an important issue that we all should be aware of, and it's the procurement and discussions about who would actually manage some parts of senior care. And I think it's really important that Holly give us a full briefing on that today so we can be aware of it. And Holly, without further ado, I'll turn it over to you to share some important news with all of us.
Okay, thank you very much. And hello, everybody. For those that you joined a little bit later, I greet you from our nation's capital. I'm in Washington, D.C. this weekend for some girl time with my daughter, but I'm very happy and appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. And as Derek mentioned, I am with the Union-Snyder Agency on Aging. I've spent my professional career with the agency and have spent the majority of my life working with and advocating for seniors. And I'm here today to talk with you about a decision that is in the process of being made by the Department of Human Services. The Department of Human Services has indicated that they intend to negotiate, actually it's an extension of an agreement that they currently have with a company by the name of Maximus for the purposes of the independent enrollment broker role in Pennsylvania. And Maximus is a national for-profit company that first came onto the scene in Pennsylvania in 2010. In 2010, they began doing enrollments for persons with disabilities under the age of 60. And shortly after they began providing this service, a protest was lodged. And shortly after the protest was lodged, a lawsuit was filed against the Commonwealth. It was the Mosley versus Alexander lawsuit, in which advocates stated that people, disabled folks, were not getting to services in a timely fashion. So a settlement was reached, and the requirement was for the independent enrollment broker to basically get people onto services within a 45 to 60 day window. In 2016, the Commonwealth saw fit to expand the agreement with Maximus to include enrolling persons over the age of 60. And in October of 2016, a special hearing was convened, and I actually had the opportunity to speak at that hearing about the concerns that we were seeing for our senior population. Once again, this was a time when folks were not getting onto services in a timely fashion, if really at all. And so we fast forward to today, and the state is continuing, for reasons I'll be very honest, we don't completely understand. The state is continuing to want to engage or re-engage with an agreement with this company. The reality is that this is a company that barely has a tie in Pennsylvania, let alone to any local organizations or to any local businesses. In probably the most brutal, simple terms, if this process were to go through, it is going to take about $36 million a year out of the hands of local organizations in favor of a national provider. As I said, they barely have ties to Pennsylvania, let alone local organizations or businesses. Some of the jobs they would probably like us to believe will stay but many will not. There's clearly a significant amount of money and jobs that will be lost should this become a reality. Um, the truth is, my staff and I live in our community. We make our livelihood in our community. We support our local businesses. Um, we're a part of the community. We are the boots on the ground. We know our senior consumers and their families. We are the entities that when there are concerns, we're the entity that folks turn to. Um, we have been providing at the area agencies on aging a core part of this service for over 30 years. And the core part of that service is called assessment. We have been doing assessments at the area agencies on aging since 1990. And we do so at a highly productive and efficient rate. Our performance standard for the close of this last fiscal year was 99.7, almost, perfect score there. So we do good work. Maximus, by contrast, has a proven failure record of not getting people to services in a timely fashion. We see families, unfortunately, have long waits to get loved ones enrolled, which as a business community is a concern, because if as business owners, you have employees with loved ones that they're trying to get to services, you may have call-offs, you're going to have delays. There's basically going to be added sick days, added leave of absences, et cetera. It really does put a burden on many, many levels. Currently, across the Commonwealth, there are 52 area agencies on aging. We are in all 67 counties. So we have the Commonwealth covered. We employ from our local community. In my small organization alone, if this contract is entered into, it will be the elimination of 5 full-time positions from my staff. Across the river in Northumberland County, they're a larger agency. If my agency is going to lose 5 staff, they're probably going to lose twice as many. I know, Bob, I think you represent even the Columbia Montour area. Again, we're looking at loss of employment for our local community. It will be really a tremendous disservice. We really need our legislature, we need our governor to understand this is not a right decision for Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania seniors deserve so much better than this. They deserve an opportunity to get to and receive the services that are essential to them to be able to live in our community, to be able to be a part of our towns and our communities. I was asked a question as far as like revenue. So yes, the revenue will be a huge loss, which for county government could end up costing more money because, for example, Northumberland County Aging is a county agency. They receive money from the county officials. So if the revenue from what we do now goes away, they're going to end up having to ask the county for added financial support. My particular agency is a private nonprofit. So we really, when there is loss of revenue, don't have a lot of places to turn except to reduce services. We are an agency that has had a waiting list for years, and that waiting list will continue to grow. Where that trickles down to the folks that we contract with, we have in-home service providers, we have meal providers. If we don't have funds to provide these services, those companies that we contract with are going to have reductions in revenue coming in. I'm looking at my friend Art Thomas down here in what's my lower corner. And we've had opportunity to work with Art's business when we encounter seniors who need home modifications or adaptations. Those revenues, which are already limited within my organization, will cease to exist. So there's all sorts of levels and all sorts of layers to what potentially this decision will make. But as I said, from my lens as someone who has spent my life advocating for seniors and seniors' families, it's the wrong decision. It's the wrong decision for Pennsylvania seniors.
Thank you, Holly. I really appreciate that overview of what's at issue here. And I also wanted to just applaud the agency when there's so many conversations statewide about having counties collaborate on services. It's really great to know that our area with the Union-Snyder Agency on Aging has been doing this for so long and really was, I think, a trendsetter in how collaboration can work, and I think very well across county lines. And I also want to thank, I know Terry has been involved as a board member too. So there's so many other people that have contributed to the success of the agency, and we appreciate all of that. Are there any questions for Holly at this point?
Yeah, hey Holly, how you doing?
Hi, I'm well, thank you.
That 99.7, what's that a measure of? You get these people enrolled in services within 45 days? 99.7% of the time?
Basically, what our role is in this process right now is we assess people who are applying for services. And right now that window is a 10-day window. So from the time we get a call till we assess them and determine what's called a level of care, we do within 10 business days. And that is part of a state contract, state agreement. And that is the measurement, is 10 days. Now that 99% is across the entire Commonwealth. So the 52 area agencies on aging, which I feel I sit here and represent to you today, we perform well as a unit. We are a rock solid service provider. I don't know where else you can go and find that number of providers doing that quality level of work.
Okay, so Linda, what the heck's the state doing this? What are they doing this for? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. What's going on?
So we could go back to 2016 when the Area Agency on Aging in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania was a model for every other state of how we should be running them, how we're providing services, how we're taking care of our seniors. And the department decided to get Maxis involved, and they thought there was a conflict of interest between, and Holly, correct me if I say this wrong, doing service coordination. And it was a conflict of interest to do that with the enrollment and the assessment, yes, which is why they introduced Maximus to get rid of that conflict of interest. And some of that came down from the feds. Holly, am I saying that correctly?
It was implied that that was coming down from the feds. So yes, that is a true statement.
So none of you are probably aware, Holly is, we did many hearings because Maximus was severely underperforming. And actually in the 108th district, we had at least one individual pass away waiting for services. And there are others, but this one was a critical situation, and because we couldn't get the services in because of Maximus. And that was not an alone situation. It was going on across the entire Commonwealth. Mm-hmm. They ended up making some changes, and I'm looking for the right word here, maybe adequately providing service. Is probably the best we can offer at this point from Maximus. So from an organization that is known not to have a great track record with our seniors, we were all taken aback when this announcement was made. Holly and all the other AAAs got on the horn right away with all the legislators. Our aging chairman has been inundated with calls from legislators, and actually he has such a good relationship with our AAAs throughout the Commonwealth, they're calling directly. So we are at the phase where we're seeing what we can do. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, the AAA organization is P4A. Am I saying that right?
That is the State Association of AAAs, right. Yes.
Who had also submitted a bid for the request for request for,
application.
thank you.
Yes, yes.
They submitted a bid protest 2 weeks ago, so a week after this was announced. Since they did that, we cannot get any answers out of Human Services at all. And right now this is working through the attorneys. This would not go into effect until I think fall of 2022. So at this point, we do have time on our side. We will be having hearings. The timing of those hearings will depend on some other things we're working on. So either at the end of June, throughout the summer. I actually made a request this morning, Holly, that we do regional hearings. I actually volunteered our area to do a hearing. Let's see if they do it.
Absolutely.
But
okay.
I thought that would be great. And I said, you can't do it just in Philly and Pittsburgh. You have to have the rural areas of Pennsylvania because the service delivery is different, you know, depending on the population and the culture and how it works. What Holly probably didn't tell you is oftentimes Maximus will call any of our areas of aging if they can't get a hold of a client, if they need help finding services. So they're still providing the same services or helping and not getting reimbursed for it. Maximus is actually receiving the reimbursement and our AAAs end up doing the work. So we are fully aware of what's going on. We have a great relationship with our AAAs and good communication. We're going to see what we can do. I no longer sit on that committee, but still have pretty close ties to it. So we are we're looking at a couple different avenues right now of what can we legally do, what will make the most impact. So I think as you watch through the next month, you might see us do some different things to help out with the situation. But I have to say, one thing we have recognized through COVID, there's been many things, but this is one thing. We are not serving our seniors as well as we could be. And it's sad to say we were prior to 2016. And now with these changes, we feel that we've a great need for improvement, and that's not on our AAAs, it's on Maximus. So there will be hearings coming, but there's some other things in the works that I'm not able to disclose at this point. But we'll be in touch. We're going to see what we can do.
Lynda, I apologize if this was already covered by either you or Holly, but you're saying there's some things we can do and we have time on our side. What is the status of the initiative right now? Is it in place? Is it's scheduled to be in place?
It is not in place. There are negotiations with Maximus.
Okay.
It's at the beginning phases. I'm actually glad they announced it, so it gives us time to respond as opposed to the contract being implemented. So at this point, we have time on our side. But right now, because we have the bid protest in, it's with the attorneys right now.
And if I could just, as a point of disclaimer, Lynda is right. The Pennsylvania Association of Agencies on Aging, which is known as P4A, is one of the applicants. And in fact, they have filed a bid protest. My role, and I feel somewhat divided, but while my agency is a member of P4A, my role as the AAA director is and always will be advocating for the area agencies on aging. So P4A is taking its legal steps to stay the process. But as a AAA director, I am obviously advocating for what I think is best and in the best interest of Pennsylvania's seniors. So, you know, honestly, what we're asking for at this point, if anyone should be interested is, or if you as a collective body would be interested, is we need the governor to understand that this is not right for our senior population. We need members of the legislature like Lynda, who already does understand how this will negatively impact seniors. If anyone would be interested, if you Google the name Maximus, you will very quickly get many, many hits on other states where Maximus has been brought in to perform services. And I can tell you that they have been ushered out of states such as Kansas, New York, Tennessee, among others, for their failure to perform the necessary services in which they were contracted to provide. It has been my understanding through research that they definitely do come in as a low bidder. But I also know under procurement law, there is a responsibility or a responsible factor. You can't just be the lowest bidder and fail to be responsible. You have to be the lowest responsible bidder. And while Maximus is often the low bidder, their performance is not there to support what it is that they will profess to do. And I remember as far back as the 2016 hearing, one of the things that then Secretary Ted Dallas mentioned was they had underestimated the amount of responsibility that was going to come under their purview. The reality of doing the type of work that we're talking about is literally going to people's homes. It's communicating with physicians' offices. It's communicating with our banks, our county assistance offices. Part of this process is an MA application, which sometimes is very labor intensive. I remember when my father-in-law was applying for services, we were actually looking at one of these applications. And at one point, I looked around the dining room table and there were 4 college-educated people sitting, looking at this application going, well, now where are we going to get this information? Where are we going to get this information? It can be an overwhelming process. But what I can tell all of you is the AAA is there. We're the ones going up in the attic to get the banker's box to pull out the information. That life insurance policy that your 91-year-old grandmother's parents took out when they were a baby is going to be in that box. And that's something that's going to have to go on the application because it still counts as a resource. So, you know, Maximus has a call center in Chicago, the way the current model is set up. They have a call center in Chicago. They have a mailroom in Harrisburg. And to the best of my knowledge, the rest of the company is managed either in Virginia or one of their other locations. But the blueprint in Pennsylvania, as far as being in our businesses, in our communities, fails to exist. They're not part of the community footprint.
Susan, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Holly and her incredible organization works pretty closely with transitions. And I guess I'm a little confused about the protective services element of what you do. How does that, a lot of that's contracted at a state level too. So I'm just a little confused about the adult protective services element.
Okay, that remains a total carve out under the Department of Aging. So that is not at all impacted. However, as the revenues go down, so too goes our ability for staffing and services. So while it's not being threatened to go out under another company, the resources that we have to spend on that very critical program, as you know, Susan, could become limited.
Are there any other questions at this point? Seeing none, I wanted to thank Holly again. We really appreciate this timely presentation. And I also appreciate Lynda sharing some of the remedies that the legislative branch is looking into. We certainly appreciate her leadership in all of that. And given the importance of the issue, I do think it's appropriate, and Bob and Chris, perhaps you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that this body could recommend to the executive board of the chamber to do a letter of support on this issue, and perhaps we could turn to Holly and Lynda to help us make sure that we direct the letter appropriately to the governor and to the legislative branch, just to make sure that the chamber is on record of supporting our agency on aging, our local agency here, and just to applaud them for their longstanding effort in serving our community. Certainly, it's an important issue to the chamber, as there are local jobs at stake here. And it seems quite apparent that that's one of the issues we should be concerned about as a chamber, ultimately providing good services and that our employment is protected. Are there any questions, or would we entertain a motion to share our recommendation with the chamber board?
So moved.
Thank you, Susan. And do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Jordan. All those in favor consent by saying aye.
Hey,
Aye.
Malcolm, point of order. Actually,
Yeah.
you can, what you'll do now is you'll just bring that motion forward to the full board.
Got
And
it.
then it won't need to be moved and seconded to the board. And I'm sure you'll get broad base. So if you just hold right there, although if you want to do a sense of the body or something, that's fine. And I guess wanted to ask Lynda, would it be helpful for us to weigh in with the legislature on the hearing? You mentioned you're advocating for rural hearings and specifically one in the greater Susquehanna Valley. If you think that's helpful, we'll do a second letter and we'll work with you and your staff on who that letter should go to.
I would suggest the chamber also send the letters to the minority and majority chairs of the aging committees of both the Senate and the House, because that's going to be the pressure point at this point. Obviously, I would send it to the Secretary of Aging and Human Services, the governor's office, but I think the work's going to be in the legislature.
Thank you, Lynda. And thank you again, Holly. I'd like to turn the floor over to Lynda again. If there's any other state issues she wishes to share with us, we always appreciate hearing an update from you. And if there's anything you'd like to share.
So we are in the middle of the budget negotiations. We're toying with a 2-year budget right now. I'm not sure we're actually going to do it, but it's something we've talked about for years. And we just thought with the stimulus money coming in 2 different batches this year and next year, maybe planning on how we spend that money might be wise ahead of time. Next year is the last term of the governor's office, and sometimes it can be rough doing a budget in those years. So that's where we're at in regard to that. I mean, we have been a couple of things going on. I've a couple of bills running next week, and Monday the aging committee is running a batch of bills on protective services for seniors. Mine specifically answers a couple things that have happened in the Valley with financial exploitation of our seniors. We needed to strengthen that law and make it a little bit more make it easier for it to be prosecuted and define it a little better. So we engaged the DA's associations, the Attorney General's office, and the Department of Aging, and all the aging agencies across the Commonwealth in doing the measure of bills. Kurt Mosser has another one. I know I don't want to talk about it yet because they're still ironing out some details on that, but we're running that on Monday. We are still, looking at repealing the governor's emergency order. I know there are some folks upset that we're not just blanket getting rid of the order, but we have been going through everything that it would impact. And if it financially impacts the Commonwealth, we are not rescinding that part of the order. If it is something we can repeal without impacting anybody, like one of the things we're watching is telemedicine. By law, we aren't allowed to do telemedicine, but by the executive order, we are. We don't want to take that away because there have been a lot of good things going on with that, especially for our seniors and for anybody receiving some mental health services. So we want to keep that going. So we're going to be repealing it all, and we're looking at legislation to keep the things that worked during the pandemic, like telemedicine, I'm doing one on Tuesday for barbers and beauticians. They were allowed to do their theory up to 150 hours online as opposed to in person. It's not a mandate. It's if you choose to do this, you can. It's for the convenience of the schools. So we've just looked at all the agencies and all the things that were, relaxed during the pandemic. And we had policy hearings on it and had testifiers. So we're just following that lead right now. So we're just looking at recovery from the pandemic, strengthening our business community and making life a little easier for them as they recover.
Thank you, Lynda. I really appreciate the update, and we're so grateful you could join us today. So, and wish you continued improvement and that you can quickly be back at full strength. So thanks, Lynda.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments before I turn it back to Chris to discuss some logistics about our upcoming events and planning for the summer?
Hey, Lynda, can you share anything about the new unemployment software process? I don't think it's quite in place yet, but it's any day now, or if it is, anything to share about how that's going to unroll?
So I would love to tell you more. My staff has been in training over the last 6 to 8 weeks and on weekly calls with the department. They're probably better able to answer that question than I am going to be. We're hoping for a smooth rollout and that the system gets better. It almost has to, but we'll see. But my staff are probably better answered to handle the details of that for you. So I apologize. I don't know more about it.
Lynda, I have two questions. I was on a state call last week with Gene Barr, and he had brought up in the budget discussion forgive me, I'm going to butcher these terms here. I apologize to everyone on the call, but understand that there is a growing deficit in the Unemployment Compensation Trust, and that as you're doing your budget negotiations, you're discussing where to take federal monies and how to apply that in both to meet existing shortfalls and anticipated future shortfalls. Have you discussed that, and where might that stand now?
So we are still in negotiations with the Senate and the governor's office on these issues. The saddest part of that is we were right before COVID, just about completely solvent from changes we had made previously. So it was a huge hit to us to see that just decline again. So we are looking at that. I think we want to make some changes as well going forward to the fund. And you're starting to see some of that legislation roll out. But it is something we need to make whole. We don't really have a choice. So I don't have any details yet since we are in the thick of negotiations right now, but it is at the top of our priority list.
Thanks, Lynda. The number I had heard was a $1.8 billion deficit now, which could grow up to 6.7 or so, compared to where the existing budget shortfall would be projected out to like 10 billion in just a couple of years. So thank you so much for your work on negotiating.
So just so you know, I mean, you may hear that we have a quote surplus at this point in the budget. We might, if you aren't taking all of that into consideration. So we really don't at this point. And it's not going to be an overnight fix. We're not going to be able to just backfill that and be done. We'll probably have to do some long-term planning to fix that hole.
Great. Lynda, my next question was also from that state call. We've heard a lot about, and we've had some local recognition, specifically Kendra Auker and Evangelical being recognized for what they've done with child care centers and service for getting women especially back into the workforce as part of what we've heard as a key to recovery. We also have heard from especially hotel industry and hospitality industry about how happy they are the work search requirement is back. But I'd also heard that 22 states have opted out of the weekly federal unemployment benefit. Is there any talk of that in Pennsylvania?
Chairman Cox, the chairman of our Labor and Industry Committee, has actually, I don't know if he introduced it, but he circulated legislation to do just that. You know, being a realist, we do not believe the governor would sign it. Everybody forgets that little piece that, you know, we can get it through the House, we can get it through the Senate, but at the end of the day, we have to get that governor to sign it. I believe we're going to go forward in running it regardless, just because I think the public needs to know that is something we're willing to go ahead and do. But I can't answer if it'll be before the budget, if it'll be this fall. But I know there's legislation that was circulated. I'm just not sure if Chairman Cox has actually introduced it yet.
And I guess my only follow-up to that question then, Lynda, would be, as it stands now, the weekly unemployment benefit is expected to expire September 4th, I believe. Is there a chance that that could go the opposite direction and be, in fact, renewed?
I actually don't have I mean, there's always a chance. I think we're hoping at this point that it is not. You know, there's other legislation out there, I don't know if you've seen it, to offer an incentive to get people back to work, like give them $1,000 incentive to return to work and stay. I think they have to stay, if I read it correctly, 8 weeks. I would like to make a year commitment out of that for them or longer, but just different members are looking at different things that they might be able to do. to incentivize people to go back to work, because right now the incentive is to stay home. I hear from all kinds of constituents, why would I go back to work when I'm making more money staying at home? And employers are struggling with the same thing. So we need to address the issue. It's just, how do we do it?
Thanks, Lynda. Appreciate your time for my questions.
Yes, thank you, Lynda. Chris, did you want to talk about our potential July schedule?
Sure. Thanks, Malcolm. So before I get into that, I want to extend an invitation to everyone on our call today. I am on the board of the Pennsylvania Association of Chamber Professionals, which is the professional development arm of chamber executives across the state. And we have a fantastic relationship with the state chamber. And each year we are in the habit of working with the legislature to have Chamber Day at the Capitol. As we began the planning for this, we discovered that, quite frankly, we'd love to have the opportunity for more chamber members to engage alongside their executives at a Chamber Day function. So I'm pleased to say that we have on June 17th and June 18th, there are 2 half-day sessions, and you can enroll at any time as members of the Governmental Affairs Committee to either of those sessions. I want to give you a little highlight of what's on the agenda, and then I'm going to send each of you an invitation to log in. The only key here is that it is restricted because the nature of our conversations, there will be no media participation during the day, and the event will not be recorded. So we're hoping that we can get a little bit more behind the scenes information as a result of that plan. But I'm pleased to say that our very own Majority Whip Senator John Gordner will be helping us with some opening remarks from the Senate. Then we're going to have a discussion specifically focused on recovery, and that the folks leading that conversation will be Senator Ryan Aument from the Senate Republican Caucus, and then Representative Aaron Culver from the House Economic Recovery Task Force. In fact, he's the leader of that task force. Then at 4 o'clock on the 17th, we'll have a budget and policy discussion with Representative George Dunbar, who's the House Republican Caucus Chair, and Matthew, I'm going to butcher this, Lynda, forgive me, Matthew Niddle, Director of the Pennsylvania Independent Fiscal Office. I got it? Yes, awesome. So that's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 4 o'clock on Thursday, June 17th. On the 18th, we were excited and surprised to hear that Governor Wolf will be joining us for a 30-minute sit-down with Gene Barr, President and CEO of the State Chamber. So he'll be joining us at 9 a.m. on Friday. Again, you're all invited to hear from the governor and from President of the PA Chamber, Gene Barr. At 9:30, we'll be having a state and federal transportation discussion featuring Ed Mortimer, who's the Vice President of Transportation and Infrastructure with the U.S. Chamber, as well as Representative Mike Carroll, who's the Democratic Chair for the House Transportation Committee, and Robert Latham, Executive Vice President of the Associated PA Constructors. At 10:30 that morning, we'll have a federal energy discussion that will feature Christopher Guth. I'm sure I butchered that one. Senior VP at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Global Energy Institute, and then our very own Senator Gene Yaw, Majority Chair for Environmental Resources and Energy Committee. Representative Pam Snyder, Environmental Resources and Energy Committee member and Democratic Southwest Delegation Chair, will also be joining that discussion. And finally, at 11:15 a.m., the PA Chamber and the U.S. Chamber always end our program with a discussion of federal and state overlap on some of these issues. So you're all invited to participate. I'm going to send you the link following this meeting. When you sign up, please indicate that you're with the Greater Susquehanna Valley Chamber of Commerce, because it's paid for, which is even better. So this is free for you to attend and restricted, no media. Any questions on that? I'm pleased to say I'll get to do an introduction for our energy discussion. So please feel free to back me up when we're into the energy discussion. And then in terms of the plan moving forward, Malcolm and I have chatted about a desire to return back to in-person meetings. And our goal here then would be to do a midsummer legislative event mid to late summer legislative event. We're hoping specifically to invite Dan Muser, who has not given us an update for a little while, to come and speak. So we're hoping that that Congressman Muser will be able to join us. We'll hear from him. And then following that event, the idea would be the month of July, we would be not meeting as a committee, and we will recap together. We'll rejoin or restart our meetings in person in the month of August. We'll continue those meetings first Friday and third Friday, with, of course, those third Friday meetings being replaced by any legislative events that we deem appropriate, given the timing of these conversations. Any questions for me about our summer logistics? Okay, Malcolm, back to you.
Well, I'll just, again, thank everyone for joining the call today, and please allow anyone who has any questions or anything else to share for the good of the order. Now's the time.
Forgive me, Malcolm, I'll say one more thing. I did receive an email update from Elizabeth Kishbaugh from Senator Casey's office. She was unable to join us today due to illness, but Senator Casey is looking to have his first in-person event in the Valley sometime soon. Unfortunately, that's as detailed as we were able to get. He did do his first in-person event on June 14th. I goofed that up. He did an in-person event, which was a drive-in town hall at Penn State Altoona this past Tuesday. So as we know more from Senator Casey, I'll be sure to let you know. And I'll also add that Representative David Rowe did text me and iterated perfectly exactly what Lynda shared about the details of the AAAs, and Lynda articulated that, so I don't have to repeat it. But you also have David Rowe in your corner, Holly. So great to know that we've got a great delegation. That's all this time, Malcolm.
All right, thank you, Chris. Thank you everyone again for coming, and we're going to give you the balance of 15 minutes back to you. But thank you all again for joining, and Lynda, we really appreciate you joining the call today.